Hey, what's happening, guys? Good morning. What's going on, YouTube? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. It's Sunday morning. I'm enjoying my morning coffee, and I saw kind of a fun business story slash tech story. Figured I'd share it with you guys. Hope you guys have had a wonderful weekend thus far. We got one more day to enjoy. Today's story comes to us from Gizmodo, and the title of this article is Google is booting sugar daddy apps from the Apple Play Store. And I thought this was kind of interesting. Normally when Google bans something, it's kind of due to social pressure. Like, maybe someone got kidnapped after setting up a date on Ashley Madison or something like that. This story's in the news, and then, some angry person's like, oh my gosh, this app allowed this to happen, and then Google decides to ban it. Now, I really haven't seen anything in the news that this ban's kind of coming out of nowhere. But I thought it was interesting. I haven't really read the full article yet, but I figured we'd read it together. Just before we kind of get into this, the whole topic of the sugar daddy thing is kind of interesting, right? Like, prostitution is legal here in the U.S. I think it's kind of silly. I think most people think it's kind of silly. But I think prostitution laws are kind of like marijuana laws, where the vast majority of the population doesn't really agree with them. They know people are going to do these things anyways, and it's kind of silly having laws against them. And actually, in many ways, having laws against prostitution and even marijuana and drugs and things like that often cause more harm than just allowing it to be legal, right? Like in some other countries where prostitution is legal, women are tested regularly. There's less, trafficking because it's not hidden on the black market. Everything is out in the open like any other industry. But when you drive things underground, that's when criminals get involved. That's when things get shady. And what's kind of interesting, so years ago, Craigslist used to have a casual encounters section, which wasn't even a prostitution section. It was basically a hookup section. I think they also had an erotic services section that was like quote unquote body rubs and kind of prostitution. Uh, the ban for this, as well as Backpage, actually came out of my home state of Illinois, out of Cook County here in Chicago. And there was a sheriff named Tom Dart. I think he might still be the sheriff. And he had initially gotten Craigslist to take down their erotic services section. Eventually, when erotic services came down, everyone from erotic services moved over to casual encounters, which was like a non-paying just hook. It was basically Tinder before Tinder existed. And then Tom Dart eventually got that taken down. Well, then Backpage popped up into prominence. And I think Tom Dart got Visa and MasterCard to pull merchant processing away from Backpage. So Backpage was only able to accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And then eventually Backpage wound up getting taken down entirely. But, just our society's kind of views towards prostitution and things like that is kind of funny. I think a lot of the sugar daddy sites have gone kind of mainstream, right? They weren't really viewed the same way as prostitution, even though it's essentially prostitution. And it's really strange to me how, like, somebody can't give somebody $100 for, a massage and a hand job, but some guy can give a girl purses and pay her rent for a blowjob, right? Like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. I always thought it would be kind of an interesting little kind of loophole in the law, like, right, like not prostitution. Prostitution is illegal, but making pornography is legal and actually very mainstream. Well, what if prostitutes and Johns just got together and said, I'd like to make an adult movie with you. Okay, sounds good. I'll pay you $200 to make this adult movie. They wind up having sex. They film it, and then at the end of the session, they're like, you know what? I decided I don't want to make this movie. We'll just scrap it. And nothing you've done is illegal because it was under the guise of making a porno production and not actual prostitution. Just little weird things like this kind of go to show kind of how silly a lot of the laws that we make are. But really just kind of, I thought it was kind of interesting how Google's deciding to boot these apps after they've been on the Play Store for years, and I'm not really sure what the reason behind doing it is now. But let's see, you probably wouldn't expect to find references to sugar daddies in Google's policy updates, but this week that's exactly what happened. Android Police was the first to note that Google quietly updated its inappropriate content policies in its Play Store to specifically forbid any apps meant to encourage compensation for sexual relationships. That means apps that facilitate any kind of sex work, including sugar dating, are going to come under fire. For those uninitiated, the phrase sugar dating bubbled into the public consciousness when the illicit dating site Ashley Madison had its data leak back in 2015. In a nutshell, the phrase simply refers to a relationship where a typically wealthy, much older man compensates someone who's typically much younger in exchange for typical sexual favors. And here in Chicago, there's an area called the Viagra Triangle, and it's there's a lot of nice steakhouses, a lot of nice restaurants, and if you go into that area and go out to dinner, on any given night, you'll see 50, 60, 70-year-old businessmen with some very attractive early 20s, mid 20s ladies or women, and it's basically a sugar daddy relationship. These things have been going on long before the internet came around. But as the internet and technology likes to solve pain points like Uber, right? We used to have taxis, and then Uber found a way to kind of bring people together through an app to take payments, to handle the navigation. That's essentially what these sugar daddy dating sites did, right? They facilitated something that had already been going on for a number of years, but rather than guys and gals having to go to the specific steakhouse to find these relationships, somebody brought it online and kind of streamlined the situation of these guys helping to find each other. Well, Ashley Madison is one kind of hub for folks to seek out these type of arrangements. There have been an explosion of competitors in recent years with names like Sugar Daddy Meet, Established Men, and Naturally Seeking Arrangements. There's no shortage of these types of apps in the Google Play Store. As of this writing, anyone with an Android device has literally dozens to choose from, with tens of thousands of mostly high ratings. At least that's the case for now. Google's policy update clarifies that by September 1st, these sorts of apps are going to be banned. Right now, apps that are banned under the company's inappropriate content guidelines include apps that contain or promote sexual content or profanity, which includes any apps promoting services intended to be sexually gratifying. That said, Google does allow mainstream dating apps, even ones that are mostly hubs looking for hookups. So that's kind of weird, right? Like a site like Tinder, you could say a site like Tinder is meant to be sexually gratifying, but that's allowed to stay up there, I'm assuming, because no payment is exchanged. Obviously, in private messages and things like that, there are hookers on Tinder and similar sites, but it's a little bit less out in the open. Naturally, there are a few ways to circumvent the impending demise of sugaring app of choice. Even after September 1st, users will still be able to download the program onto their phones via sideloading, a term for downloading an application package for an app or an APK directly onto your Android device. And if any of you guys have ever had Showbox or any of these like illegal movie streaming apps, that's how you get them, right? You go to their website and you download their APK. Although I'm sure this is going to hurt the business of a lot of these apps. I'm guessing your average 60-year-old sugar daddy may not know how to go download an APK in the same way that they would know how to hop on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store and download Seeking Arrangements. And of course, we're seeing people in the sugar dating community start flocking to more vanilla dating apps like Tinder, especially following some recent high-profile scandals involving apps like Seeking Arrangements. Needless to say, people looking to have their backs scratched will likely be just fine. So let's read some of the comments. Sugar dating is a kinder word for prostitution then, like a happy ending massage. I assume also a legal out for the daddy. Otherwise, I thought sugar daddy and mama relationships, sexual or not, that had the power dynamic but weren't explicitly prostitution. Let's read the full discussion. I'm always kind of interested in hearing what other people have to say about these things. Let's see here. In the olden days, it was called keeping a mistress. Same thing, new name. Seems like it's more analogous to a dating app. It's facilitating two people hooking up in a relationship, except the commonality that links them leans closer to I like money and I have money than I like long walks on the beach and watching House Hunters. Just like legit dating apps, you have people who game it to provide straight prostitution services. Give me money, I fuck you, we part ways, rather than compensated dating with all of the benefits that entail that is sugar relationship. Having not looked into any of the apps, some may intentionally provide a venue for straight prostitution work under the guise of sugar relationships. It's a weird area in the traditional sense. It's more unethical than illegal, since a couple is together because one of them is wealthy and will give the other gifts and money. But the modern version is where it really straddles the lines. In some cases, it is straight up sex work. Client pays money for sex. Sometimes it is dating where a client is paying money for company, but sex itself isn't a requirement or expected. Sometimes it's like a dating service where a client pays money to be put together. Often the wealthy one is the one paying, while the younger, poorer one is a traditional sugar daddy relationship. Using power dynamics in relationships can arguably make it worse than sex work, since it can be viewed as coercion. If you were unwilling before but now being given a new place, that can be viewed as rape if you wish to push charges in the future. I wonder why or how a very old phenomenon springs to relevance just now if it's all recycled, just with a dash of internet exposure and respun to look glamorous, chic, and postmodern. Someone's up, wrong picture, sugar daddy candies. This and apps like OnlyFans are basically the same essence wrapped up in a different package. Just get rid of them all. So anyhow, I'd be curious to kind of hear your guys' thoughts on this. Why do you think Google is banning this now? Are they trying to kind of curate a more family-friendly image? Did someone complain? Is there some media story that's about to break about one of these sugar daddy sites? And what do you think about this? Do you think this is the right move? Do you think this is kind of silly? Would love to hear your thoughts as always, so drop a comment down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, give the channel a subscribe, ring the bell. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and we'll catch you on the next one.